Alright, folks, it is Friday, April 15th, 2016, and I'm Sam Whitfield. You're listening to the Whitfield Analysis, and I have a bunch of topics to talk about this week. First off, I want to address right off the top of the hour, right now, why I haven't done a podcast in a few weeks. There are a couple reasons. First and foremost, I've been busy with school. I've had to take care of a couple of projects, a couple of assignments. I've got those taken care of, so I am back this week and I have more time to do the podcast. But in addition to all of the stuff with school, I also have to be honest and tell you folks that I'm a little disappointed in the way our political process is going. At this point, the Republicans don't seem to know what to do in regards to victory. The party is fractured in a way that I have never seen it before. As a matter of fact, so is the whole entire conservative movement. We have the always Trump side, which is pretty much worshipping Donald Trump in the same way that the left worshipped Barack Obama in 2008. They haven't admitted that Trump has made a few mistakes. I'm talking about the radical fringe element of the Trump supporters here. They're okay with letting him get away with all of his BS because he's politically incorrect and he says a whole bunch of inaccurate and false things, and they're not willing to call him out on that and say that he's wrong for saying that. On the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, we also have the Never Trump crowd, which is saying that if Donald Trump does get the nomination, they will stay home and not vote, even if it's Hillary Clinton who Donald Trump is running against. Now, I'm not so sure about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I detest Hillary Clinton. I absolutely despise her. And if it came down between Hillary Clinton and a rock, I would pick a rock. I would also pick Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton any day. Because while Donald Trump might be crass in some areas, he is not inherently evil, whereas Hillary Clinton is. People like to say that Donald Trump has all of these scandals and about how he's a failed businessman and how he has 4 failed businesses and how he's a racist and how he's a homophobe. None of which is true, by the way. But they like to say all that stuff, and then they don't want to take a look at the hard, cold fact that, yeah, Hillary Clinton lied about Benghazi. She lied about her email server, and she's been involved in countless other scandals as First Lady, such as Whitewater, and let us not forget my personal favorite, the death of Vince Foster. Sorry, I almost blanked there for a sec. Also, Glenn Beck has officially gone off the rails, ladies and gentlemen. We will be talking about that too. Why I can no longer stand Glenn Beck. Alright, folks, you're listening to the Whitfield Analysis. I'm Sam Whitfield. Thank you for joining us. Alright, folks, I want to thank you once again for joining me tonight. Contact info as usual, you can go to the website at thesamwhitfield.com. You can follow me on Twitter at SMW_NGC, hashtag WA Radio Show. You can follow my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram. And you can download the Sam Whitfield iPhone app free from the App Store. So now that I've got the contact info out of the way, I want to begin the program by discussing Donald Trump, because if you've been following me on social media, you'll know that I've dropped my endorsement for Donald Trump. Now, I haven't exactly dropped my endorsement for Trump, but rather what I've done is I've gone neutral in this election cycle. I should have done that from the beginning, folks, but hey, what can I say? I'm young, and Marco Rubio really did excite me, ladies and gentlemen, so when I endorsed him, I really did believe that he was the best candidate that we could have gotten. Once Marco Rubio dropped out, I have to admit I kind of endorsed Trump because I was angry at the Cruz supporters who absolutely made Marco out to be this big, evil, nasty GOP establishment guy. And that's one thing I want to bring up here in a little bit. But I've decided to go neutral on Trump because there are just a couple of things. Mainly the late night tweets, as Ann Coulter calls them, that I'm not too thrilled about. I mean, even Ann Coulter, who was once Donald Trump's biggest fangirl, is now kind of going in the same direction that I've gone, where she's going more neutral. Yes, folks, I do like the fact that Donald Trump is politically incorrect. I do like the fact that he says some things that quite honestly need to be said. We do have an immigration problem. We do have a problem with radical Muslims coming into the country. They do need to be stopped. And yes, I do agree that building a wall might not be such a bad idea. The problem with Trump is his languaging. He will say anything to anyone just to get more votes, and he will also come off as an extreme airhead, saying what he thinks, and he doesn't really care who he insults. He just does it because he's Donald Trump. And at first, it was kind of funny, and then after that, I have to admit, I kind of tolerated it, for the purposes of endorsing him. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I just have to be honest. It's really tough for me to listen to Donald Trump and even listen to him make some points that I agree with. It's really hard for me to listen to him and say, yeah, that's the guy I want to support, because he does say absolutely cringe-worthy things. So I've decided to go neutral, and here's my stance on Trump. If he is the nominee, I will do whatever I can to support him. I will become the biggest Trump supporter that you can imagine, because if he is the nominee, that's what it's going to take, ladies and gentlemen. In order to beat Hillary, we will need to support whoever the candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. Famous last words by the great Andrew Breitbart that I wish more people these days remembered and took to heart. So I've decided to go neutral on Trump, but my frustration isn't so much with Trump. It's more over with the GOP in general, ladies and gentlemen, and even more specifically, folks, with the Tea Party. The Tea Party has actually become counterproductive in its original goal. So I guess since I'm already talking about that, I'll start there. I am so disenfranchised with both sections of the conservative movement right now. On the one hand, you have the quote-unquote establishment GOP, the longtime career politicians like Lindsey Graham and John Boehner and John McCain, who by no means are true conservatives in the sense of the word. They're more moderate, but they're not the evil assholes that the Tea Party seems to make them out to be. They may be ineffective, yes, but I don't think they're the evil, corrupt, scummy elitists that the Tea Party seems to make them out to be. Now, going back to the Tea Party and defining them, let me say this. It breaks my heart to say this, but the Tea Party has become just as bad as the quote-unquote establishment right. When I was a teenager, ladies and gentlemen, when I was 16 in 2010, 2011, that was the year that the Tea Party became a big deal, okay? That was real when the Tea Party launched. I remember being there for that movement. I remember that that's when this podcast really started to take off. And that's the year I joined Twitter, and I really started to enter the fray as a public figure and as a young conservative activist. The thing that really appealed to me about the Tea Party in the early days, ladies and gentlemen, was the fact that this was a movement that basically was saying, hey, we want to get back to the founding principles of limited government, personal responsibility, free speech, and strong economic responsibility. And we don't want to become majorly involved in wars that we don't need to be involved in, but we do recognize that terrorism is a big problem in this country, and we're going to address it. Oh, and by the way, we also will support anyone who is a conservative, whether they be gay, straight, black, Mexican, Hispanic, able-bodied, handicapped, or whatever, because the idea of conservatism is more important in terms of an ideology rather than all these different groups that the left likes to put us into. That was the Tea Party of 2010 and 2011, folks. And we saw the rise of great leaders, great political leaders, such as Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, just to name a few. It was also a huge time for conservative media to really come back and to really give birth to a new generation. We saw websites like Breitbart.com get formed and enter into the fray. Andrew Breitbart was really the first one who started the whole new media conservative movement. He was the one who led conservatives to sign up for Twitter in droves, to sign up for YouTube. He was a political and social media activist of the highest order. I've done entire shows on the genius of Andrew Breitbart. What Andrew did by leading the conservative media movement is he allowed conservatives to really create their own platform. 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, you used to have to get on talk radio, and by talk radio I mean terrestrial talk radio. You used to have to go to a station or a TV station if you wanted to start a TV show, and oftentimes you would have to get a license by the FCC and go through all this, licensing rigmarole to get your radio show on air. And then, if you were lucky to get that far, then you would have to find sponsors and build a whole, big following via radio. And if you were lucky, you got nationally syndicated. And if you were really lucky, then your name is Mark Levin or Hugh Hewitt or Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh. Okay, conservative media, prior to the rise of the Tea Party movement, was really limited to the big players. Suddenly, there's this guy by the name of Andrew Breitbart, along with a few others, who say, hey, there's this whole social media thing going on. The left really knows how to utilize it. Well, why can't we do the same thing? And you start to see an emergence of conservative bloggers, conservative YouTubers, conservative Twitter activists. There are some people, folks, all they do, their only platform is on Twitter. El Super Mexican is a person I can think of. Counter Moonbat is another big conservative activist. These individuals only operate on Twitter, yet they've gained massive followings and they've helped build the conservative movement into what it is. And then you have young conservatives, such as myself, who we're interested in the economic part of conservatism in the Tea Party, but only to a certain extent. We're more interested in media and pop culture. So those of us who are interested into that, we start podcasts and we get online and basically start our own radio shows. And long story short, I, as a teenager, as a 16-year-old, well, all my other friends were going out and drinking and slonging each other and getting into, massive trouble and rebelling that way. I was rebelling in a different way, folks. I was out there rebelling against the Obama administration, which at that point, the left had become the man. The left had become the power structure, and I was one of those, crazy little teenage activists out there that was, really giving the finger to the man at that point. And in a lot of ways, I still am. I'm more refined as a college student. But there was something about being a teenager and in the conservative youth movement back then that was just so invigorating. And by the way, I met conservatives from all walks of life. Gay conservatives, straight conservatives, Jewish conservatives. I had Ben Shapiro on my show in 2012, before he became big time, before he really hit the big time. I've had Guy P. Benson on my show from townhall.com before he became a major player. I've been witness to several great things within the conservative movement myself. And I apologize if you can hear me swallowing. I have a lot of saliva building up, so I may need to swallow some of that at this point. Anyway, that was the Tea Party of 2010, 2011, 2012. We were inclusive. We were expanding the tent of conservatism for the better, as my friend Zach Angel likes to say. We were building a movement and expanding it. And then Andrew Breitbart unfortunately passed away, and everything went to shit, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to say it, but it's true. I want to take a brief moment and play you a clip of what Andrew Breitbart said back in 2012 at his final CPAC speech of what he envisioned the Tea Party being, and then I want to go on to the next portion of my discussion by telling you what sadly the Tea Party is now. So this is Andrew Breitbart at CPAC in 2012 explaining that the conservative movement needs to unify as a whole in order to beat Barack Obama, which obviously did not happen. Cut number 1, go.
Unity speech. You want a unity speech? I'll give you a unity speech. I don't care who our candidate is, and I haven't since the beginning of this. I haven't. Ask not what the candidate can do for you. Ask what you can do for the candidate. And that's what the Tea Party is. We are there to confront them on behalf of our candidate. I will march behind whoever our candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. There are two paths. There are two paths. One is America, and the other one is Occupy. One is America, the other one is Occupy. They try to portray you in the worst possible light. And when I walk through CPAC, where I travel the United States to meet people in the Tea Party who care, black, white, gay, and straight, anyone that's willing to stand next to me to fight the progressive left, I will be in that bunker. And if you're not in that bunker because you're not satisfied with this candidate, more than shame on you, you're on the other side.
That was Andrew Breitbart speaking about the Tea Party back in 2012 at CPAC, right before his death, less than a month later. Now, he was all about unity in the Tea Party. He was all about building the tent of conservatism. And now, it's like the Tea Party, ladies and gentlemen, is so fractured, even within itself, and the conservative movement is so fractured, the Tea Party doesn't even matter. In fact, the Tea Party, here's the ironic thing. Half of the Tea Party literally endorsed Donald Trump, who isn't grassroots conservative. He's not a Tea Party conservative as intended by Breitbart or any of the other founders. And hell, I think he even criticized the Tea Party back in 2010 when they first started. And yet, Sarah Palin endorsed him, and so apparently now, according to half of the movement at least, he's grassroots, quote unquote. I know you guys listening to this can't see me doing air quotes, but yeah, that's what I just did. On the other hand, you have candidates like Marco Rubio, and this is really why I'm pissed off at the Tea Party. So let me let me address this fact right now. This is ultimately why I feel so betrayed and why I feel so pissed off with the Tea Party right now. Right now, ladies and gentlemen. Marco Rubio, who was one of the freshman senators who ran his campaign for the Senate under the Tea Party banner back in 2010. He was the Tea Party's golden boy, or one of them, along with Ted Cruz. He was fierce. He exemplified conservatism in every aspect according to the Tea Party. And he was exactly what the country needed, according to many Tea Party activists in Florida and across the nation. He goes in and he makes one mistake, which is the Gang of Eight bill. And by the way, the Gang of Eight wasn't even initially his thing. Yes, he co-sponsored it, but he didn't vote on it, and it wasn't his original bill. And yet, once that happened, the Tea Party dropped him like a stack of bricks because they didn't conform to his agenda right away. So they dropped him. Then in 2015 and 2016, you had a bunch of quote-unquote Tea Party activists saying that Marco Rubio is basically an establishment hack because of the Gang of Eight. Now, that is BS, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, but that is complete and total crap. Marco Rubio has one of the highest ratings, according to the American Conservative Union, a 98% approval rating. And yet, somehow, he is not conservative enough because of one mistake he made during his first year as a freshman senator. According to them, it was a mistake. I don't even think it was that much of a mistake. You know, Gang of Eight happened, and it is. And Marco Rubio's whole policy on immigration, ladies and gentlemen, isn't the worst thing in the world either. All he has been saying is that it's unreasonable to want to deport 6 million people in like less than 5 years. All he has said that apparently seems pro-illegal alien is that it's unreasonable to round them all up and deport them all at once. That's all he's said. He hasn't said that, yay, I'm for open borders, or yay, I fully support open immigration that's illegal. No, he has a sane stance on immigration, as far as I can know. Just because he's saying, hey guys, it's not reasonable to want to deport all these people, doesn't mean that he's not a conservative or whatever. So, but yet the Tea Party has still branded him as a traitor, and I don't understand why. It's just really disappointing. On the other hand, you have Ted Cruz, who Glenn Beck, I kid you not, seems to think is the Messiah. He has literally compared Ted Cruz to the Messiah, and I think, you know, folks, I used to like Glenn Beck, but as of late, he's just gone off the rails too much for me. he started to slowly devolve. Yes, that's right, I said devolve. He started to kind of devolve into madness right around the 2012, 2013 year. Really after the election is really when he started to go on to all these conspiracy rants, and it's sad because I really used to like Glenn Beck, but ever since he's wandered off into conspiracy theory land, I can barely stand to listen to him anymore. And sorry for that disruption in the background. I don't know if you heard that. But as I was saying, Glenn Beck has made Ted Cruz out to be the Messiah, and this has to be one of the most sad things and one of the most desperate things I have heard from a conservative commentator in a long time. Glenn Beck is playing out the conservative stereotype that we're all kooks and we're all conspiracy nut jobs. Now, Glenn Beck has his right to free speech and whatnot, but if the conservative movement wants to legitimize itself again, we're going to have to address people like Glenn Beck head on. It's just sad what has happened. And I think Glenn Beck is actually hurting Ted Cruz at this point by turning him into a quote-unquote messiah. Cut number 1, go.
But then he says, but God has not revealed Ted Cruz as the divinely anointed alternative either. To you, Dr. Kidd, to you, God hasn't revealed Cruz as divinely anointed. I understand that, and I respect your opinion on it. But here's mine. I have seen this man's life. I have watched this man. I have prayed about this man. I have prayed about it by myself, out loud, in quiet, with my family, with my staff, and I happen to believe that Ted Cruz actually was anointed for this time. Would there not be someone that was in the pool that might have the right qualifications for God? Is he that disinterested in all of us? Or is it perhaps possible that just like in the Bible, people were raised from birth for a specific time? Are we that inconsequential, Dr. Kidd? Are we really not important enough for him to raise someone up at this critical juncture?
Alright, folks, now, I have a couple issues with that, and I am a devout Christian, as most listeners know. I have a faith in Jesus Christ, our Lord. But even as a Christian, I have a strong problem with what Glenn Beck is saying. Mainly, how does he know that Ted Cruz is the anointed one? That's a little pompous of him to say that he knows that Ted Cruz is the anointed one. Only God knows who the anointed leader for this country can be. Now, I have no problem with Glenn Beck saying that Ted Cruz is a man of faith. I have no problem with him saying that Ted Cruz is a good Christian man. I have no problem with that. But for him to say that that Ted Cruz is the anointed one, sorry, I almost said Marco Rubio. And for the record, I don't think Marco Rubio is anointed from God either. But I think it's a little pompous for Glenn Beck or anyone to say that they're candidate is anointed from God to lead. But it gets better. Glenn Beck's Mormonism and his Mormon faith, which, whether you like it or not, folks, is more or less a cult at the end of the day, his Mormonism is really starting to seep through and show in his politics, and this is becoming a big, big problem. The left has been going after him for this clip nonstop at a rally where he was speaking. And unfortunately, I can't really defend Beck here, folks, because it is creepy and it is almost cult-like. And this is what is happening now that Glenn Beck is off the rails and kind of on his own. When he was at Fox, he didn't really get to do this stuff. But now that he's on his own, the conspiracy theories have just become so rampant. He's pretty much become Alex Jones for non-Alex Jones listeners. Cut number 2.
Let me testify to you now. The Book of Mormon is a book that was given to us for this time in this land. And it explains exactly what it's going to look like when trouble comes. And I don't know about you, but I can put new names against old names in the stories, and it all works. So here's what I'm saying to you. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and I've been wanting to say this for a very long time. Where the hell are the priesthood holders? Where are you? Thank you. It's time to stand up. It's time to stand up. You know what time it is. The priesthood is supposed to rise up and restore the Constitution. Now is that time. Period. The Book of Mormon trusts in you that you will see these times and you will run to the truth. I come to you today to give you this message. Utah has an incredible opportunity. So many Christians have been standing up, but all throughout the South, the evangelicals are not listening to their God. Let us raise a standard in Utah. Let us do this one thing perfectly right.
So yeah, gang, it appears as if Glenn Beck has gone off the rails. I mean, where in the hell does he get the nerve to say that Christians have lost their way and are no longer listening to their God because some of us support Donald Trump? You know, that has always been one of the things that really kind of irritates me. And it's another stereotype that you're only a true conservative if you're right-wing religious Christian conservative. I know Christians who are liberals. I know Christians who are apolitical. I know Catholics who are conservatives. I know Catholics who are liberal. And yes, I even may know one or two Mormons that are Democrat. The point being, it's really insensitive of Glenn Beck to say that Christians are failing their God or Christians are acting unchristian if they don't support Ted Cruz. That's basically what he's saying. And yeah, that's why Beck's popularity and why his credibility has sunk in the last couple years. And it's really sad, folks. I remember I was a senior in high school, and when I was in high school, I used to listen to Glenn Beck every day when he was still on Fox. I used to be a subscriber to his podcast, to his radio show, and later to his TV show when it initially started airing on GBTV. That was back during a time when he was really funny and really witty. He used humor and wit to win an argument. He wasn't too far into conspiracy theories either at that point. He was still relatively sane. Then after the 2013 election, then right after the 2012 election, he really started to lose his marbles, and he really started to kind of walk down this really kind of depressed conspiracy theory type path. I met him when I was a senior in high school, and I was able to shake his hand and tell him how much I appreciated what he was doing, how I really appreciated how he was standing up for the country at the time. And I consider myself very blessed still to have met Glenn Beck. But I am telling you, the Glenn Beck that I met as a senior in high school is not the Glenn Beck that is out there today, and it's really sad. Alright folks, that about does it for tonight. I was going to cover some stuff with Bill Maher and radical Islam, but considering that we're running up on 45 minutes, I figured I would take this time to end the podcast here. I want to thank you all for listening so very much. Please follow me on Twitter at SamW_NGC, hashtag WA Radio Show. Feel free to go to our website at thesamwhitfield.com. Until next time, I'm Sam Whitfield. From all of us here at Next Gen Conservative Media, have a good night, God bless, and God save this great nation.